Downtown with Sophie I. You did? For her birthday. Going on a boat tour. Ain't this how the Roni started? Yeah. Let's see where we're at. You did? So, Sophie, what are we doing for your birthday?
We're on a boat ride.
Oh yeah? Boat ride to see what?
The architectural tour of Chicago. We're gonna see the Willis, the Sears Tower, Willis Tower, Trump Tower.
You mean this place over there? I think that's why you wanted to go here so bad.
So I could do this.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Wait. We don't want to get put off before we get started.
Okay.
Sorry, fellas. They said no Hennessy will be served on this boat. You know, it'll attract the wrong types. Get it. Okay. Yeah, miss. Let's see if how the Chicago River looks. Nope. This ain't that Caribbean water. You can't see through it. Applesauce up there too. Look at that. Looking like they just driving a regular damn boat. That's a boat taxi. Look at that. Yo, 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 yo. Shout out to my amigos. Chilling. Amigos on the Chicago River chilling. That's your partner and them from the east side, so?
Yeah. Out there with no.
Look, here goes some people in a canoe. Canoodling. Good job.
Hello.
Tourism in our own city.
Good evening. Welcome aboard the motor vessel Evening Star for Shoreline Sightseeing. Before we get started, I have a couple of safety announcements for you. First of all, Evening Star is a Coast Guard inspected vessel. What does that mean? It means we have life jackets on board. By the time you leave this boat, you will be a Chicago history whiz kid.
Look at that DuSable
To start, I want to talk about this
Bridge.
bridge. It is called the DuSable Bridge.
Yeah,
it's
let's
named
talk
for
about
a
that.
super important person in this city. His name is Jean-Baptiste Point DuSable. He's the founder of our town. He was the first permanent non-native settler. He was a Haitian Creole immigrant who arrived in Chicago in the 1780s, set up a trading post right here where Michigan Avenue meets the Chicago River. We have many things named after him here. This bridge, DuSable Harbor, and the DuSable Museum of African American History. Straight in front of us, you can see the second tallest building on the Chicago skyline today, and that is the Trump International Hotel and Tower. This building was completed in 2009, designed by a super famous global architect who has his roots here in Chicago. His name is Adrian Smith. Adrian Smith started his career at Skidmore, Owings & Merrill in the Windy City before going on to design the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, which is currently the tallest building on the planet. The Burj Khalifa is about as tall as if you took two of these here, stacked them right on top of each other. This building is designed in a style called contextualism. This building is in heavy conversation with its context or its location. Notice these three patio setbacks as you go up the side of the building. These patio setbacks integrate the building into the neighborhood by matching the heights of buildings nearby. The first patio matches the height of the Wrigley building. That's this white building right behind it. We'll talk about that building later in our tour. Second patio matches the height of the Mather Tower. That's this rocket ship-shaped building over on the other side of the boat. Third patio matches the height of the AMA Plaza, the Black Rocks building coming up right after. This is Adrian Smith recognizing that he could not have put this building in this spot if not for the others that were around it first. The are the most heavily photographed structures in our city, and these are the twin curving corncob-shaped towers of Marina City. Marina City is an entire complex completed in 1967, designed by a student of Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. His name was Bertrand Goldberg. Bertrand Goldberg was not so interested in Mies van der Rohe's ideas about right angles. He argued that there are no right angles in nature, so why should there be so many in architecture? This entire complex was a ploy to attract residents back to the central business district of Chicago, which we call the Loop because of the shape that the public transit train system makes around the area. No one was living in the Loop in the late 50s, early 60s. Goldberg wanted to draw them back, so he was going to give them all of the resources of an entire neighborhood in a single complex. So you have condominiums and apartments above, parking right below, office tower connected behind, movie theater, corner store, dry cleaner, retail space, restaurants, even a place to park your boat. Everything you could possibly need all in one spot. It was like a city within a city, and it was super successful incidents back to the Loop area. Over on the left-hand side of our boat, you can see portions of the relatively newly constructed Chicago Riverwalk. The Riverwalk is a project many years in the making. We broke ground back in the 1990s. Just finished it up and opened it to the public about 5 years ago today. The Riverwalk currently spans 1.25 miles. It can get you from Lake Michigan all the way back to Lake Street. We do have ideas about where we could expand it in the future. The Riverwalk is divided into distinct sections, each with their own personality and function. All of the personalities and all of the functions are focused on getting our residents outside to enjoy this beautiful public waterfront. Coming up on the right-hand side, you see a low-lying red brick building. This is the Reed Murdoch Building. The Reed Murdoch Building was completed in 1914, designed by George C. Nimmons in a style of architecture called Prairie Style. Prairie Style was invented here on the Illinois Prairie, made most famous by a different Illinois architect. His name was Frank Lloyd Wright. Although this is not a Frank Lloyd Wright, it is still a good example of Prairie Style, which is marked by long horizontal lines, solid construction, and integration with the natural landscape. You may also notice this building is asymmetrical. If you did not notice, that's what we were going for. 6 bays of windows on one side, 5 on the other. What happened here? See, back in the 1930s, we decided we wanted to expand the next street coming up above our heads. This is LaSalle Street. Wanted to make LaSalle Street wider. How did we make space to do that? We just shaved a bay of windows off the Reed Murdoch Building and closed up that western face to match. Today, this building is home to the headquarters of the Encyclopedia Britannica Company. The Encyclopedia Britannica Company still exists, and that might be the most surprising fact of this entire tour. Coming up way ahead of us in the distance on the right-hand side, you see a giant limestone building, big cream-colored building. It has a green roof, lots of golden elements on its face. This giant limestone building is called Merchandise Mart. Merchandise Mart was originally constructed in 1930. At that time, it was the wholesale warehouse for the Marshall Field's department store. At that time, it was the largest building on the planet in terms of square footage. The building is enormous. It has over 4.2 million square feet of space inside. At different points in history, Merchandise Mart has had its own zip code, 60654, its own fire station. To this day, it has its own public transit train stop. You can take the brown or the purple line train directly in and out of Merchandise Mart. Merchandise Mart is designed in a style called Art Deco. Art Deco style architecture is marked by vertical racing stripes up a polished Indiana limestone face, deep inset windows that reinforce the look of those racing stripes, metallic elements on the building's facade that create a sense of rhythm when you are looking at them, and stair-stepped edges up at the building's crown. We are now entering into an area of the Chicago River called Wolf Point. Wolf Point is where the 3 branches of the Chicago River converge. It's where we originally built our city up around. It's a great time for me to talk to you about the first of the 4 red stars on the Chicago city flag. That first red star represents Fort Dearborn. Fort Dearborn was a military fort constructed in 1803. It's the first major permanent settlement of people in this area. Fort Dearborn was burned to the ground during the War of 1812, but this gave us an opportunity to rebuild. We could pick a spot wherever we wanted in this entire area to build a city up around. We picked Wolf Point. This is where we built our city up around, got our township charter in 1833, got our city charter 4 years after that on March 4th, 1837. Today, Wolf Point is home to some of the flashiest architecture on our skyline. Like this blue building straight in front of us. Has a big arch at the bottom, another big arch up at the top. Some people say it looks like a Hot Pocket or a McDonald's apple pie box. This building is actually called River Point. It was completed in 2017, designed by Pickard Chilton. And that arch at the bottom is actually structural. Notice the portholes in the White Plaza below. Those are actually exhaust fans, as there are Metra and Amtrak passenger trains running underneath the base of this building. When they went to design the structural supports for River Point, they could not just dig them straight into the ground. They would run into the railroad tracks. And to keep them above, they set them at an angle and then finish it off with that parabolic arch, which also serves as the rain gutter for the entire face of the building. In front of us now is a sharpened pencil looking tuning fork shaped building. This one is called 150 North Riverside. It was also completed in 2017, designed by Gatch Partners. Gatch Partners had a similar conundrum as the designers of River Point. They had the river on one side of their plot and the railroad tracks on the other. This left them with an area of space only about 30 feet wide upon which they could construct the base of the building. How does it possibly stand upright? This building is supported by a series of 16 structural support beams called caissons. Caissons are giant steel and concrete beams that are about 10 feet in diameter. They run from the bedrock, 125 feet below ground, all the way up to the very, very top of the building. Everything else just hangs off that center spine. Here in the Windy City, even though our nickname has nothing to do with the weather, which I'll talk about later on, we still have gallons of water. How it works is this: when the wind blows the building in one direction, the water sloshes in the other direction, keeping that building nice and straight upright. Next on the right is the Boeing headquarters. Super fun place to work over the last couple of years. The Boeing headquarters represents a style of architecture called postmodernism. If modernism was that minimalist black box design of Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, this is its funky rebel child of the 80s and 90s. It is marked by wacky and whimsical design elements on the building's facade. This building was constructed in 1990 to be the headquarters for the Morton Salt Company. Now when we come out from under this bridge, if you take a look up at the top of the building, you will see a panel of 6 giant holes opening that rooftop up to the sky. Now if you're designing a building for a table salt company and you put holes in the top, what are you trying to replicate? A salt shaker. You see, architects can be fun and playful people just like you and me. We are now headed into what I like to call Art Deco Canyon. There's going to be Art Deco on both sides. We'll talk about the building on the right-hand side first. This is 2 Riverside Plaza, originally the Chicago Daily News building. It was completed in 1929, designed by Halliburd and Root. It was the first building in Chicago constructed facing the water of the Chicago River. Unfortunately, for many, many years, this water was super polluted. Not a lot of recreational boating, mostly just shipping barges making their way through the sludge. Not a lot to see here. People did not want to see what was going on here. Most of the buildings went up their backs to the water, like the Civic Opera building on the other side of the boat. Over on this side, the architects here predicted one day we'd clean the water up, turn it into a recreational hotspot. Now they have that fabulous open-air plaza to enjoy because of it. Now this next series of buildings on the right-hand side of the boat is a great example of how architecture evolved in the United States throughout the 20th century. How do we go from the opulence and the optimism of Art Deco in the 20s and 30s? Way forward, the curving green glass building coming up on our right-hand side. That green glass building has that curve to it. The curve mimics the curve of the Chicago River below, and there is a pinched facade to the green glass windows. This creates a rippled reflection. So we pulled that building up from the bottom of the water. This was completed in 1980.
Hey, Soph, I just thought about it.
A little bit closer to us on the right, you see a smaller black box building. This one has big X's on its side.
What if
this is the former Chicago Commodities Exchange Center.
Then we got to swim.
Crossing trucks made their world debut in 1969 in Chicago with the completion of the John Hancock
You're a professional
Center.
drunk swimmer?
Those big X's are load bearing. They put the entire weight of you are here. It blows my mind how one simple work of art transforms this building into something unforgettable on our skyline. Back over on the right, you see another giant limestone building coming into view. This one might look familiar to you as the Gotham City Bank, robbed by the Joker in The Dark Knight. This building is the Old Chicago Post Office. The Old Chicago Post Office was completed in 1924. At that time, it was the largest post office in the entire world. You might be thinking, hey Gordon, what do you guys think of such a big post office? It's important to remember that Chicago was the headquarters location of many different border-away firms throughout the 20th century. Sears Roebuck, Montgomery Ward, Marshall Fields, all these retail giants were headquartered here in Chicago. So we had a lot of directly through the center of the building. That is exactly what happened from 1956. This did pose a problem. Fast forward to the 1990s, no longer our order away for many, many years until 2016, when it was purchased by developers who are now funneling over $800 million into its renovation. This building will become high amenity luxury corporate offices for a number of different tenants, including but not limited to Walgreens, Home Chef, Ferrara Candy, and Uber. As we travel down the south branch of the Chicago River, it's a great sight for me to talk to you about more red stars in the Chicago City.
Congress Post Office building.
First red star was Fort Dearborn. Fort Dearborn, that first Lebanon settlement. Second red star comes to us from the year 1871. 1871, City of Chicago was pretty young at this point, for about 35 years old, for those that with fluorescent light bulbs. We have since switched over to LED. We have also learned that we have to turn the bulbs down in
Outside.
brightness.
So, Sophie, how you enjoying your birthday?
I'm loving it. I love this
You see, when
tour.
migrating birds first came through in
So glad I
1990, they
did
actually
it.
mistook that crown
Social
for
distancing, not
the
too
moon.
crowded at all.
They got super,
Awesome,
super
beautiful
lost.
weather.
We felt super, super
I love
bad.
it.
So now we know that the birds are coming through. We just turn the lights down and stay
Did you
out of
learn
the
anything
entire
about your own
situation.
city?
I learned that
Directly
brownies
behind
were
the queen
created
of our
here
skyline is, of course, the
by
king of our
Bertha
skyline.
Palmer of the Palmer
Tall,
House
dark,
Hotel.
and handsome. Tallest building in the
fair.
city of
We
Chicago.
passed them out to the
This is the
fairgoers.
Willis Tower.
And that's the most
The
important
Willis Tower, which
information
is
you could have
commonly
possibly
referred to as its
learned.
original
Where
name,
brownies
which is the
came from.
Sears Tower, clocks in at
girl stuff.
1,451 feet tall, or 442
Okay, so I said, where did weed
meters.
brownies come from?
This was the
If brownies
tallest
was
building
made
on the
here,
planet when it was
weed brownies
completed.
had to be made
In
somewhere.
How white folks in their
1973,
kitchen.
it remained the tallest building in the world for almost 25 years, until the
No,
completion
somebody
of
was
a pair of
making
twin
brownies
towers in
and selling
Malaysia
them.
preceded. This was the tallest building in the United States until 2014, with the completion of One World Trade, New York City. Now, I'm going to say something to all of you that has never ever gotten me a second date, and that is, I want to talk to you about skyscraper antenna. I think they're rad. I think they're totally fascinating. These are two antennae on top of the Millis Hill. They
Look
are
at that, so-
very, very tall. 30 stories tall. They actually don't get the building's official height.
So, you
They
see
are
that?
considered to be purely
Look up.
utilitarian. Counter that with the spike on top of One World Trade Center. That is not called an antenna at all. That is called the Jewelers Building is located on a corridor of Wabash Avenue that has always been known as Jewelers Row, because back in the 1920s when this building went up, the area was a hotbed of not only jewelry merchants, but also organized crime.
We're spinning the bin again. Police station, firehouse, all that. Yes. Navy Pier. Sophie straight kept chilling. Beautiful. As you can see, it's raining too. We're on a boat and it's raining, but it's still beautiful. You dig? Get a picture with that.